We talk about the matter with International Development and Security Cooperation Resident Fellow Joshua Bernard Espeña. Joshua, thank you so much for joining us. Before we get into the details of a potential tripartite alliance, let's take a look at this laser tagging of a Chinese ship on the West Philippine Sea. Could this be a warning from the Chinese saying to us, don't mess with us? You, the Philippines, are getting closer to the Japanese and to the Americans.
Actually, my perception about this development is that it's entirely independent of this recent development of the Marcos Jr.'s announcement of the tripartite agreement. In fact, what I see about this laser tagging incident is but a normal kind of operation for China. As we know by now, it's on the verge of trying to fully modernize its People's Liberation Army in that sense that it tries to control the sea lane of communications, not just in the South China Sea, but also in the Taiwan Strait to the East China Sea. Basically, the entire first island chain from Japan all the way to the Strait of Malacca. So instead of seeing this as a reaction to this kind of development, it's just fully independent, that we are here to demonstrate whether you fully modernize or improve your capability with your allies and partners. We can do this because we are a new bully or / a new player in town.
All right, a new bully, a new player in town. And of course, we've seen several incidents taking place, not only on the West Philippine Sea, but also in the United States with these Chinese balloons. So let's take a look at the tripartite arrangement. What is the potential for this, and what does the Philippines stand to gain?
We have to set the context first, at least. Instead of me seeing this as a kind of independent foreign policy by Marcos Jr. and his bravado to take up the diplomatic arena, I see this as rather the American success in trying to fully integrate its capability to complete the once upon a time incomplete or the weakest link of its alliance system here in the Indo-Pacific. As we know by now, the Duterte administration tried to pivot to China and thus making the Philippines as a weak link, putting uncertainties to the alliance system. Now that we have Marcos Jr., we have this much more clear statement from the president that he will not allow surrendering an inch to the enemy of our maritime territory. And then also the recent development with the EDCA. It's a development that indeed the Americans are trying or are now on the momentum of trying to fully integrate the so-called integrated deterrence concept that it once released in its 2002 National Defense Strategy. Yeah. It's more of that framing instead of us being successful. But so Joshua, the interesting part is this.
Joshua,
sure.
Joshua, the president said it is just a concept and more needs to be discussed on the salient features of this tripartite arrangement. When do you think will the Americans, the Japanese, and the Filipinos really come together, sit down, and try to flesh out this tripartite arrangement? And when do you think it could become a reality?
We don't know certainly the details of the timeline, but as President Marcos Jr. himself said, that it's in the pipeline of his foreign policy priority. So we'll just have to see more in the later stage.
But in your view, what could be some of the details of this arrangement, and what could be some of the major sticking points that this arrangement between the three countries will not even materialize, or it will not even happen?
Okay, sure. When we talk about the U.S. alliance system, here's what we need to understand. Japan and the Philippines are not treaty allies. That's the problem, at least for the Americans. And for us, they're just strategic partners. It's much more of a lower yield commitment of a certain policy area. And in this sense, the security and defense sphere of concern. Now, what the Americans are trying to do is to try to make all of these efforts, line of efforts of the American hubs and spokes system integrated with these countries like Philippines, South Korea, Japan, as a more complete chain of the ability to try to contain China. Although, of course, President Marcos Jr. would not like to to label it as a form of containment. However, alliances are all about containment. It's just that we're living in a so-called multipolar world order, so we need to try to navigate a much more flexible approach in our diplomatic option. But when you talk about defense partnership, you need to be consistent, you need to be clear in your strategic guidance because armed forces at the end of the day are political tools. So if armed forces do not have any clear policy goals, that's going to be a problem. But I do understand that since we live in this very much fluid environment right now, whereas many countries are trying to assert themselves in the world stage. So I think Marcos Jr. is trying to say on the one hand that we're trying to lead alongside the Americans, but when you much more likely for me, I'm gonna be expecting that on the military operational sense of things, the Americans will still take the lead.
All right. We'll have to leave it there. Thank you so much for your insights on a potential tripartite agreement between the Philippines, Japan, and the United States. International Development and Security Cooperation Resident Fellow Joshua Bernard Espeña.